don't know what's funny for, or why I have to scream. I don't know why I instigate, say what I don't mean. I don't know how I got this way, I know it's not alright, so I'm breaking the habit.
Greetings, YouTube. It is I, Revenge of the Fallen. When I mention media bias, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? I thought so. What if I mention political spin in the media? Okay, how about if I mention propaganda? Fox News is infamous for being the #1 most biased news network in America. It's the first network people think of when they think of propaganda, bias, political spin, and everything else wrong with the media. There are countless videos, channels even, dedicated to debunking Fox News. However, this overemphasis on Fox News gives the impression that this channel is the only thing wrong with the news media. While Fox News may be considered the worst news network in regards to media bias, it is not the only one. Other channels tend to suffer from some level of bias, though perhaps not to the same degree as Fox. And so, while everyone else is ripping on Fox News, I plan to go outside the box and target another biased news network, one which ranks second only to Fox News in terms of bias, and one which is in desperate need of a rant. The network I speak of is Msnbc. But let's begin with Fox News. People hate Fox News because it parrots the talking points of the Republican Party. This was especially true during the 8 years under Bush, as the network supported his every decision, from the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, to the Patriot Act, to waterboarding terror suspects, and so on. Fox News would even malign people who disagreed with Bush, such as the anti-war protesters. This caused many people to view Fox News as a government-run news network. But now, as Bush has been replaced with Obama, so too has Fox News, having been abdicated by Msnbc as the president's lapdog. Msnbc has stood by every decision Obama has made, from the economic stimulus and bank bailouts to healthcare reform, and even going far enough to defend Acorn after being exposed towards shady dealings. In fact, the only time I can recall MSNBC disagreeing with Obama is when he announced he was going to freeze government spending. A smart decision considering how far America is in debt and how badly it's dealing with the recession. It just goes to show you that MSNBC tends to follow political ideology rather than fact, even if it means attacking their beloved president. But for the most part, MSNBC has good company with the administration, and vice versa. Last year, the administration criticized Fox, claiming that it wasn't a real news network, and when the White House decided not to allow interviews with Fox, guess which network they chose for interviews? You guessed right. MSNBC has also attacked people who disagreed with Obama, Fox News usually being their main target, but perhaps their most vicious and vile attacks have been directed towards ordinary citizens, primarily the Tea Party movement. If you want any clear evidence of MSNBC's bias, look no further than their coverage of the Tea Party movement. Because the protesters don't buy the same bullshit that MSNBC subscribes to, the network will vilify the protesters as racist and white supremacists, because anyone who attacks a black candidate is a racist by default.
This is about hating a black man in the White House. This is racism straight up. That is nothing but a bunch of tea-bagging rednecks.
The whole of the anger at government movement is predicated on this. Times are tough. The future is confusing. The threat from those who would dismantle our way of life is real, as if we weren't to some extent doing it for them now. And the president is black. But you can't come out and say that's why you're scared. Say that, and in all but the lifeless fringes of our society, you are an outcast. And so this is where the euphemisms come in.
And Michelle, let me just remind you of some of the folks you want to embrace. You would be redefining the Republican Party as ignorant and hateful.
In other words, they're almost all white people, and this is, in essence, a white people's party.
Just for reference here, when Tom Tangrado talks about literacy tests, that's what they used in the South to keep black people from voting, before civil rights legislation and court rulings put a stop to that. So the National Tea Party Convention opened with a clarion call to bring back the literacy tests for voting.
Where are the people of color at the tea parties?
Perhaps their most damning moment came in August 2009, when a protester attended an anti-Obama rally with an AK-47 strapped to his back. MSNBC lauded the incident as evidence that protests against Obama were racially motivated, and that most protesters were racist and white supremacists. It would later be revealed, however, that the gunman was actually an African American. MSNBC had used video footage that was intentionally zoomed in on the gunman to hide his race, thus allowing reporters to spin their story into one about racial fear and violence. If this isn't proof of blatant dishonesty on the part of MSNBC, I don't know what is. And what rant about MSNBC would be complete without mentioning its top political pundit, Keith Olbermann.
But this graduates to the level of fatal political malpractice, when the ultimate result of your effort to slime your opponent is to in fact draw a parallel between your candidate and William Ayers.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's not the real Keith Olbermann, that's a puppet. Then again, Keith Olbermann is a puppet for Obama. Keith Olbermann is infamous for two things. One, having the lowest ratings in network news, because nobody likes you. And two, being a liberal douchebag, which really wouldn't be a bad thing if he were honest about it. Unfortunately, he's been noted for saying, "I'm not a liberal, I'm an American." Do I really need to prove that Keith Olbermann is a liberal? His political bias is pretty obvious. Take his worst person in the world segment. Please. It pretty much follows the same formula every night. The worst person will be a right-winger, the worser person will be a Republican, and the worst person will be a conservative. If you think I'm over-exaggerating, consider this. Of the 197 people he's labeled as the worst person in the world, 174 of them were conservative, while only 23 were liberal. Keith Olbermann has also been known for shooting his mouth off.
You're a fascist. Get them to print you a t-shirt with fascist on it.
His most damning moment came shortly before the election of Congressman Scott Brown, when Keith smeared the guy as
an irresponsible, homophobic, racist, reactionary, ex-new model, teabagging supporter of violence against women and against politicians with whom he disagrees.
Talk about classy. You know you've gone overboard when you have Jon Stewart calling you out.
You've ceded the high ground, and now you wallow in the fetid swamp of baseless name-calling, and as we both know, sir, that's my thing. It is beneath you. It is next to me. A man of your intellect need not be me.
And there you have it, MSNBC, the second most biased news network on television, often overlooked on YouTube in favor, or rather disfavor, of Fox. Is it any worse than Fox? Not really. Is it any better? Definitely not. This is Revenge of the Fallen, signing out.